Hello all. Here I Komal Sharma welcomes you all at our channel Gargi classes. So here I am heading my way towards the second given poem, Dead Be Not Proud, which is actually a sonnet by the metaphysical poet John Donne, who is the first given poem, the canonization, about which we have discussed in our earlier videos. So this one is the second poem or the sonnet which is given into our syllabus of UPSC mains English literature. All right then. So here we are moving ahead towards the Holy Sonnets, Death Be Not Proud. So here Holy Sonnets is basically collections of sonnets which is written by John Donne, in which there are 19 sonnets comprises. Among all those 19 sonnets, this particular sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, is given into our syllabus. Alright, so we are moving ahead towards the particular introductory part of this sonnet. So, Sonnet 10, also known by its opening words as Death Be Not Proud, is a 14-line poem or sonnet by English poet John Donne. So basically, Death Be Not Proud is also known as Sonnet 10th. Sonnet 10th as it comes over the number 10th in this particular collection of work Holy Sonnets, which is written by John Donne. Alright, so this sonnet 10 or Death Be Not Proud is a sonnet which comprises 14 lines basically. It was first published posthumously in 1633. So, as I have mentioned while I had been discussing all about John Donne's life, at that time I told you all that whatever works were published, which were written by John Donne, those were published posthumously only after his death. There wasn't even a single work which was published during his lifetime. So, this particular work, Sonnet 10th or Death Be Not Proud, also published posthumously in 1633. It is included as one of the 19 sonnets that comprise Donne's Holy Sonnets or Divine Meditations among his best known works. So this particular collections of sonnets, Holy Sonnets, which we named as Divine Meditations too. So this particular collections of work contain or comprises 19 sonnets. Among those 19 sonnets, this particular sonnet is sonnet number 10th, Death Be Not Proud. So, the popularity of this poem lies in its unique subject, as it was a devotional as well as warning to personify death. So, here death is personified as a human being, where on one side this poem or this sonnet reflects the devotion of the poet, and on other side this is a kind of warning against the death. So, we are moving ahead towards the next point using the metaphor of death. Here, the poet used the metaphor of death into this particular sonnet. The poet argues that death is not permanent and it serves as an eternal pathway to life hereafter. So, death is not permanent or immortal, all according to the poet John Donne into this particular sonnet, and it serves only as an eternal pathway to life hereafter. So, this is just a pathway from this life to the next. Alright, this is not immortal, the death is not immortal. He also has demonstrated the Christian doctrine of resurrection and immortality of the soul, calling death as inferior. By believing into the Christian doctrine of resurrection and revival of the soul and mortality of the soul never dies, calling death as inferior. So, into this particular sonnet, what Donne wants to say that death is just the pathway, is just the way from this life to the next life. So soul is as immortal and it arises, or it rises again, or it revive again into the next life. By focusing on this particular resurrection point, he calls death as an inferior object. Such power is merely an illusion, and the end death thinks it brings to man and woman is in fact a rest from world weariness for it alike victims. So what happened is the illusion of death, that death thinks that she is so furious, or he is so furious in his own way. At this point, this particular death is just making the illusion around it, all right, because death is just the way by which men and women rest from the world of weariness, all right. To take the rest from the world of weariness, they took the part of death by them own selves, by the human themselves. This particular path have been chosen, all right. So death is just the way to take rest. The poet criticizes death as a slave to other forces, fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. So actually, death is nothing, that is just inferior and the slave of other forces of the world, like fate. If the person's fate meets him or her towards death, then only they meet to death. And the chance, by chance they meet to death, or the kings, or by the desperate men. Alright, so death is just the slave of the forces of external, which are actually mean to met by human only. Death is not in control, for a variety of other powers exercise their violation in taking lives. Even in the rest, it brings death is inferior to drugs. Death is even inferior to drugs, in fact. Finally, the speaker predicts the death of the end of death itself, stating, "Death, thou you shall die." Ultimately, the death itself dies, instead of it create the death of the human. All right. So hope you would understand which kind of phenomena the poet had written this particular sonnet, "Death Be Not Proud," in which, by using as a metaphor death, or by personifying death, he wants death particularly. He challenges the death, that you are just inferior. You are the slave of the forces which are meant to meet by uh, human only, the fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. All right, death is even not in control of itself, and death is even inferior to drugs. So these kind of things the poet had been using into this particular sonnet by giving a warning to this particular. All right, then. So without taking, this was our actually introductory part of the sonnet. By these lines, by the introductory lines, hope you would get to know that what kind of sonnet we are now going to read out. So here I am moving ahead towards the particular text of the sonnet, and I'll be also discussing line by line summary of this particular sonnet. I'm going to detail the sonnet. All right then. So death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Much pleasure than from thee much more must flow. And soonest are best man with thee to go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness well. App and poppy of charms can make us sleep as well and better than thy stock. Why swells thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death thou shall die. So this was our sonnet. Now I am going to detail the particular lines of this sonnet. So here I am reading. This is just the text of the novel which I recited now. So here the meaning of the first line is, death be not proud, thou some have called thee mighty and dreadful. So here the speaker directly addresses this personifies death. As you can see here, that death is personified here as a human being. Like one person challenges the other person with the same prospect, here the speaker addresses death as a personified human being, telling it not too proud, that you shouldn't be proud and to be not to be arrogant just because some people find death scary and dreadful, just because few people among vast generation, few people considers you as mighty, as dreadful, as scary. That doesn't mean that you are very scary. You are not. You shouldn't be proud, you shouldn't be arrogant for this. All right then. Then the speaker said, for thou art not so, you are not as scary as the few people consider you. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. So here the speaker said that death is neither of these things, because people don't really die when death, whom the speaker pities, come to them, nor will the speaker truly die when the death arrives for him. It's not actually when the death arrives to the people, they die. It's not like that. We cannot die by just coming of death towards us. Alright. Then he said that from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure than from thee much more must flow. Next, the speaker said he comparing death to the rest and sleep, basically from rest and sleep. You are just a kind of rest and sleep of our soul, which are like images of death. So rest and sleep are just the images of death only. The speaker anticipates death to be even more pleasurable than these both activities. So here the poet says that you are more comfortable or you are more pleasurable, much pleasurable than these two things, rest and sleep, though the death is just the resemblance of rest and sleep. But still, he considers death as more pleasurable. Furthermore, it's often the best people who go with death. There are only few people who go with the death. Then from thee much more must flow, and soonest our best men with thee do. So there are very most people, or the adorable people and the good people, the best people who go with death, in fact. So these kind of people who go with death, they doesn't reflect anything apart from resting of the body and the arrival of the soul into the afterlife. So this is just a way, death is just the way to lead the soul from this life to another, rest of their bones and soul's delivery. So this is just the soul's delivery from this life to the next one life. All right then, what next the poet says into this particular sonnet is, thou art slave to fate, you are the slave of fate, chance, kings and desperate men. So now the poet says that death is fully controlled or under control by the fate and luck, and often administrated by the rulers of the people acting desperately. So here hope you would get to know, the speaker calls death just the slave of luck, chance, and the kings and the desperate men. All right then, and the ruler who are the rulers of the people who are acting desperately. Next, the speaker points out that and thus with poison, war, and sickness dwell. So here the poet says that death is also associated with poison, war, and illness. So here poet says that death, you shouldn't be proud as you are associated with poison, war, and sickness dwell. With illness, of course. And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well, and better than thy stock. Here the poet says that drugs and magic spells are more effective than death when it comes to rest. Alright then. So here poet says that the drugs and the magic spells or the intoxication is better cure us, better provides us death, better provides us rest. Alright. So why swellst thou then? One short sleep past, we awake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Now the poet says that what possible reason could death have for being so puffed up with pride? Here the poet says, why swells thou then? Why are you proud then upon? As we have these things, these talks, these intoxications, these magic spells, and even you are associated with poison, war, and sickness, and you are the slave of fate, chance, king, and desperate men. Instead of having all those things, why are you so proud upon this? Next he says that death is nothing but a mere sleep in between people's earthly lives and the eternal afterlife, in which death can visit them no more. It is instead death, or a certain idea of death as something to be scared of that is going to die. So this is just an idea. Death is just an idea which is going to die soon. Alright then. So this is our whole sonnet, about which in this particular John Donne had given his idea. And in this sonnet he personified death. He used the death as a metaphor. And throughout the sonnet he challenges the death. Okay then, so this is our bit explanation of John Donne's sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, or sonnet number 10th among the Holy Sonnets series. So here I'm going to elaborate a few more things all about this particular sonnet. So I'm going to elaborate here the analysis of the poetic devices in Death Be Not Proud. So what are the poetic devices had been used by this particular John Donne into this sonnet? What are the poetic devices are there? So first of all, as we all know that this particular poem is called sonnet. This is what we call the sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem in which the same idea runs throughout the poem. Of course, the sonnet is the poem of 14 lines in which the single idea runs throughout the poem. As you could see into this particular sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, the same idea, the same concept runs out throughout the sonnet. In this sonnet, John Donne has combined the Shakespearean and Petrarchan style. Into this particular sonnet, John Donne combined both the styles of the sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet style and the Petrarchan sonnet style. And what are the Shakespearean sonnet? What are the Petrarchan sonnet? I'm going to discuss soon all about the sonnet styles or the poetic devices particularly used by the English poets since the very time. So you could go to my another videos where I'll be discussing all about the poetic devices or the literary devices of English literature, where you could get to know what are the Shakespearean and Petrarchan style sonnets. So here John Donne combined both of these styles of sonnets, Shakespeare and Petrarchan. The division of the sonnet reflects the Shakespearean structure, whereas the rhyme scheme shows the structure of the Petrarchan. So here he used the style of writing or the structure of Shakespearean sonnet, but while he used the rhyme scheme, he uses the structure of Petrarchan sonnet. All right then. So here, what are the rhyme schemes basically? In the first, second, and third quatrain, the poem follows A B B A rhyme, and in couplet, the rhyme scheme is A A. So basically, he used the rhyme schemes which are used by Petrarch, the Italian poet, and he used the structure of this particular Shakespeare sonnet. Now we can go towards again to this particular sonnet so that you would come to know all about the um, given rhyme schemes. So here you could see thee, so, throw, me. So here thee and me sounds equivalent. So here this is A B B A. All right, thee, so, throw, me. All right, so this is what we call the rhyme scheme. The end words of each line sounds alike. All right, so this is what we call our rhyme schemes. Alright then, what is the meter used by John Donne here? Most of the verses of this poem are written in iambic pentameter. In iambic pentameter, this particularly sonnet is written, which unstressed syllable is followed by stressed syllable. So in iambic pentameter, what happen is an unstressed syllable is there, then there is stressed syllable, then unstressed, then stress, unstressed, stress. These kind of things going on into this particular meter, iambic pentameter, as it is stirred from rest, and however the meter fluctuates as the poem progresses. By the progressing of the poem, the meter also fluctuates, but on the very beginning, the poet used iambic pentameter. All right, so this particular poem is a sonnet written in 14 lines, and into this particular sonnet, John Donne combined both the styles of the sonnet, Shakespearean sonnets and Petrarchan sonnet. He used the rhyme schemes over here, which sounds like A B B A, and the final couplet sounds like A A. All right, then. So these are our basic poetic devices which have been used by John Donne. Now we are heading towards the analysis of literary devices in Death Be Not Proud. Now, what are the literary devices? Earlier, I have discussed all about the poetic devices. Now, I am going to discuss all about the literary devices in Death Be Not Proud. So, what are the literary devices? Are used to bring clarity, richness, and uniqueness to the text. So, literary devices always bring clarity, richness, and uniqueness to the particular text. Donne has used various literary devices to follow readers to try to find more interpretations. So here, basically, John Donne have used various literary devices so that the reader interpret the sonnet all according to the variations of his own mind. All right then. So the first literary device is personification, as I have been using this particular word, that death is personified into this particular sonnet. All right. Now, what is personification? Personification means to attribute human features to known human things. So basically, death is a known human thing to which the poet John Donne attributes as a human being. Alright, by considering death as a human being, he challenges the death throughout the or wants the death throughout the sonnet. Donne has personified death throughout the poem, stating it should not be proud. Being proud is a human quality. Of course, the humans have only right to being so proud upon. All right then. So, being proud is a human quality, hence, death is given a human quality of having feelings and emotions. So, death is given a human quality of having feelings and emotions. That's why the death is personified as a human being. He gives to death all the emotions or the qualities which a human consists in him or herself. Next literary devices which was used by John Donne is metaphor. These are three metaphors. There are basically three metaphors in this poem. Three metaphors have been used by John Donne. The first is used in the opening line, death. Death is used as a metaphor. Death be not proud. Death be not proud. Here, death is compared to a proud man. So, here, death is compared to a proud man indirectly. So, he used the metaphor, death be not proud. The second is used in the ninth line, thou art slave to fate. Now, in the last line, in an extended metaphor where death is compared to non-existence or unrealistic object. So here into this particular sonnet, three times when John Donne used metaphor, when he compared death to a proud man, when he compared death to a slave, when he extended metaphor where death is compared to the non-existent or unrealistic object. So here it's three times when John Donne used metaphor by comparing death to many things into this particular sonnet. Then he used alliteration. Alliteration is another literary device. Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sounds in the same lines of the poetry, such as the use of though in and better than thy stock, than thy. It's the. While swallows thou then, the, and am sound in much pleasure than from thee, much more must flow. So alliteration is the repetition of the consonants into a particular line. In a single line, there are the repetition of the consonant sounds. So here the repetiting sound of the into this particular line, then and thy. Then the next line, thou and then, the repetition of th, and the m sounds, m consonants repetition in the much more must. So here the repetitions of the particular consonants into these lines. Alright, so John Donne used also alliteration. Now next he use metonymy. Metonymy is a type of metaphor in which an object is used to describe something closely related to it. In this poem, poppy, charm are used to produce gentle sleep or death. So here, in order to represent the gentle sleep or death, he used the word poppy and charm, these two objects. Alright. Next, he used the literary device as assonance. Now, what is assonance? Assonance is the repetition of the vowel sound. So, assonance is the repetition of vowel sound, and alliteration is the repetition of consonant sound. In the same line of the poetry, such as the sound a in thou art slave or to fate. So, thou art is a here vowel sound, slave, fate. So here the repetition of the vowels into this in these particular words of one single line. Chance kings and desperate men, and the sound of e in and soonest are based men with thee to go. So here the repetition of e vowel into this particular line. So assonance is the repetition of vowels, and alliteration is the repetition of consonant. Now he also used the irony into this particular poem, where irony means a statement that may mean something different from or the opposite of what is written. So here the irony is whatever is written into this sonnet is just opposite of what is real there. So irony often expresses something other than their literal intention. So irony is also opposite of the meaning of the literal intention, often in a humorous. For example, death thou shalt die. So here this irony happens when the poet calls that finally death you'll die by your own self, because no human souls die by the death. It's death only who dies. So here you use the irony too. So this was all about our particular sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, which is written by John Donne himself, who is a metaphysical poet. So hope you'd get to know how he personified, or by using the metaphor death into this particular sonnet, he challenges or wants the death. Alright then, and yes, by while I have been discussing all about John Donne's life and career, I said that once he fell ill or once he fell sick for a long duration, at that time he wrote this particular sonnet, and at that time he was in state to not fear of death. At that time he wrote this particular sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, and which is the sonnet number 10th among the holy sonnets, which are the 19 sonnets comprises into one series. So thank you so much for watching this video. Do subscribe our channel, do like the video if you think the informations whatever I had been given here is were there enough for you all, and press the bell icon to get the notification of our upcoming video. And of course, instead of commenting below, you can email us over our email ID gargiclasses.edu@gmail.com for your further queries, so that we can directly email you or connect with you.